I watched them all the time. I think I watched Indiana State and Iowa, Caitlin Clark play about the same last year, so I watched a lot of basketball.
Like, can we get Caitlin Clark a little protect?
Picture this, the greatest basketball legend of all time, eyes narrowed, watching the WNBA's brightest young star take hit after hit, cheap shots that go way past the line. And when Larry Bird speaks on it, the entire basketball world holds its breath. Anyone who pulls a flagrant stunt on Caitlin Clark after everything she's brought to the game should be suspended and fined. No excuses, but here's the real question. Have you ever seen a superstar targeted the way Clark has, night after night, with the world watching? When Larry Bird saw Marina Mabrey's reckless play in that brutal matchup against the Connecticut Sun, it shattered his belief in how much respect the WNBA shows its stars, and here's the twist that makes Bird's words cut so deep for Mabrey, her reputation. Bird has been in Clark's shoes. Back in the 80s, he was the most skilled player in a league full of physical enforcers who tried to bully him because they couldn't match his basketball IQ. But Bird knows the difference between championship-level toughness and crossing into dirty, reckless territory. So when he saw what happened to Caitlin Clark, Bird didn't hold back. He called it the most cowardly act I've seen on a basketball court in decades. Let that sink in.
Mabrey's going to get ejected. Marina Mabrey kind of blindsided Clark there. Oh boy. Sheldon and Cunningham are getting into it. These two teams.
The moment Larry Bird saw footage of Marina Mabrey shoving Caitlin Clark from behind, while Clark was already reeling from an eye poke, his reaction was immediate and brutal. Remember, this is the same man who went toe-to-toe with enforcers like Bill Laimbeer and Dennis Rodman, a man who understood competitive fire better than almost anyone in basketball history. Yet even he could see that Mabrey's shove wasn't about competition. It was a betrayal of every code of sportsmanship and integrity. And wait until you hear what Bird said about the timing of that shove. This is where Mabrey's reputation begins to unravel. But first, a quick reminder, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Back to the story. Larry Bird highlighted something every fan has felt but few with his credibility could voice. As he put it, there's a world of difference between championship-level defense and taking a cheap shot at a player who isn't looking and is completely vulnerable. Bird made it crystal clear that in his era, the NBA's most physical, if you had an issue with someone, you faced them head-on like a warrior. You didn't wait until their back was turned to strike like a coward. And that, he said, is exactly what made Mabrey's shove so infuriating. Here's where Bird's words become absolutely devastating for Mabrey's reputation. What really lit a fire in the Celtics legend was watching Mabrey's pitiful reaction afterward. Instead of showing even a hint of remorse or admitting she had gone too far, Mabrey played the victim, whining that the media and fans were being unfair. She said, "Damned if I do, damned if I don't." Those words hit Bird like a match to gasoline. Bird pointed out that true champions, the legends of the game, own up to their actions, especially when those actions put another player's health at risk. Watching Mabrey deflect responsibility reminded him of players who, knowing they couldn't compete at the highest level, resorted to cheap tactics to make an impact. In other words, Bird essentially labeled Mabrey a second-rate player, relying on dirty plays because she couldn't match real talent with legitimate skill. Now, here's where Bird's insight shifts, and becomes a glowing testament to Caitlin Clark. He sees in Clark the same rare, unteachable qualities that made him an all-time great: clutch shooting that defies logic, and supernatural court vision that elevates everyone around her. But Bird also sees something that genuinely worries him, as a guardian of basketball's soul. Bird sees a phenomenally talented young player constantly forced to watch her back for cheap shots instead of focusing on reaching her unlimited potential. In his eyes, Mabrey's approach is the ultimate betrayal of basketball, a symbol of everything wrong with how some players choose to compete with Clark. Instead of working harder, preparing smarter, or pushing themselves to her level, they take the easy route, targeting her physically when she's most vulnerable. Bird's words on this behavior were sharp and unforgiving, the weakest form of basketball competition imaginable. But here's the part of Bird's commentary that has the entire basketball world buzzing. He compared what Caitlin Clark is enduring to the grueling physical tests he faced as a rookie, but with one critical difference that makes Clark's situation even more impressive. Bird said, "Clark is facing more adversity at 22 than most players see in their entire careers, and she's doing it while carrying the weight of being the undisputed face of women's basketball." And what Bird said about Marina Mabrey's future in the league. That's the part exploding across social media, and you have to hear it to believe it. Bird warned that if the WNBA keeps allowing players like Mabrey to target, Bird warned that if superstars continue to face cheap shots without consequence, it sends a dangerous message. Mediocre players can rely on dirty tactics to stay relevant instead of improving their skills. He said this could drive away the very players who are elevating the league to new heights. He went further, emphasizing that the league's failure to protect its stars sends the wrong message to young fans watching at home. Kids should be learning about skill, dedication, and respect, not how to target someone when they are not looking. Perhaps the most powerful part of Bird's entire commentary was his prediction about Clark's future. He said, "Caitlin Clark is being forged by this adversity. Every cheap shot and dirty play only makes her mentally tougher, more focused, and more determined to dominate through pure basketball excellence." Bird compared her journey to his own rookie year, when veterans tested him physically every game, but the difference is Clark is doing it while shouldering massive media pressure and the expectations that come with being the most marketable player in WNBA history. Here's why Bird's support for Clark matters so profoundly. He's not just defending a young superstar, he's defending the very integrity of basketball. In Caitlin Clark, Bird sees everything that makes the game beautiful: skill, vision, heart, and class. And in players like Marina Mabrey, he sees the very forces that threaten to tarnish it. Bird made it clear, the WNBA is at a crossroads. They can protect their brightest stars, allowing players like Clark to elevate the league to new heights, or they can let dirty tactics from lesser players stain the sport's reputation. His message could not have been clearer. The future of the league hinges on one critical choice: will the WNBA protect its brightest stars or allow reckless players to drag the game down? Here's the question everyone is holding their breath for: will the league heed Larry Bird's warning and protect Caitlin Clark, or continue letting players like Marina Mabrey compromise the integrity of the sport with dirty tactics? Join the conversation in the comments below. Do you agree with Bird's scathing takedown of Mabrey's actions? Is he fair, or too harsh? And most importantly, do you think the WNBA will finally take action to protect its biggest star? I read every single comment. If you want more analysis that cuts through the noise and reveals what's really happening in basketball, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. The world is watching what happens next, and Larry Bird's explosive words might just be the catalyst that changes how Caitlin Clark is treated in the WNBA forever. Don't blink, this story is far from over.